My name is Sarah Jenkins, I am 48 years old, and as the sterile lights of the operating room blinded me, I gripped the nurse's hand and begged her to tell my husband I loved him, fully believing the massive abdominal mass the doctors had seen on the scan was about to end my life. The last thing I saw was the surgeon's eyes above his mask, looking grim and determined, before the darkness of the anesthesia pulled me under. I expected to wake up in the ICU, hooked up to chemo ports, or perhaps not to wake up at all. Instead, I woke up to a sound that didn't belong in an oncology ward. It was a high-pitched, rhythmic wail. I tried to sit up, but a sharp, searing fire tore through my lower abdomen, forcing me back against the pillows with a gasp. A nurse I didn't recognize rushed to my side, her face beaming with a smile that felt completely wrong for a cancer patient. "Easy, easy, Sarah," she soothed, adjusting my blankets. "You did great. He's perfectly healthy." I blinked, my tongue feeling like sandpaper. "Who?" croaked out. "Who is healthy?" She stepped back, and that's when I saw the clear plastic bassinet next to my bed. Inside, swaddled in a striped hospital blanket, was a newborn baby. I stared at the infant, then back at the nurse, panic rising in my chest like bile. "Where am I?" I whispered. "Where is the tumor?" The nurse's expression softened into something pitiful. "Honey," she said gently, "there was no tumor. You were 36 weeks pregnant. You just had a baby boy." The room spun violently. "That's impossible," I stammered. "I'm 48. I haven't had a cycle in 8 months. The doctors, they said it was a growth. They saw shadows." "It happens more than you think," she said, checking my foredrip. "Retroverted uterus, anterior placenta. He was hiding right against your spine. When they went in for the biopsy, they saw the uterus immediately. It was an emergency C-section." I looked at the baby again, his tiny fists punching the air, and felt a shockwave of terror mixed with awe. But then a colder realization hit me. I looked around the empty room. "Where is Mark?" "Yes. Where is my husband?" The nurse's smile faltered. She looked toward the door, then back at me, biting her lip. He was here when the surgeon came out to tell him the news," she said quietly. "He looked shocked. He said he needed to move the car." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "How long ago was that?" "Yes." She checked the clock on the wall. "About 6 hours ago." Please note that this story touches on themes of traumatic birth, unexpected pregnancy, and emotional abandonment, which may be difficult for some listeners. Please prioritize your mental well-being. If you have ever had your entire reality flipped upside down in a single heartbeat, please take a second to like this video. It helps share these stories with people who need to know they aren't alone. I stared at the clock, the red numbers burning into my retinas. 6 hours. Mark never left me alone for 6 minutes when I had the flu, let alone major surgery. "Can you hand me my phone?" I asked, my voice trembling. She pulled it from the plastic belongings bag and handed it to me. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, and then went straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Mark. Leave a message." I hung up and texted him. Mark. "It's a boy. Where are you? I'm scared. The message delivered. But the read receipt never appeared. I lay back, the pain in my incision throbbing in time with my heart, and looked at the stranger in the bassinet. For 20 years, Mark and I had tried to have a baby. We spent our 30s in fertility clinics, draining our savings on treatments that resulted in nothing but heartbreak and negative tests. By 45, we had made peace with it. We bought a smaller house, traveled more, and focused on our careers. When my stomach started swelling and the pain began 4 months ago, pregnancy was the last thing on my mind. My doctor, a specialist I had only seen twice, felt the hardness and saw the shadowing on the ultrasound. "It looks like a large fibroid or a tumor," he had said gravely. "Given your age and the rapid growth, we need to operate immediately." I had gone home and cried in Mark's arms. He had held me so tight, stroking my hair. "We'll get through this, Sarah," he had promised. "I'm not going anywhere. It's you and me. Always." Just then, the baby let out a sharp cry, pulling me from the memory. "Do you want to hold him?" the nurse asked. I don't know," I whispered. Felt like a trap. If I held him, it would be real. If it was real, then the cancer I had prepared to die from was gone, but something arguably more terrifying had taken its place. Motherhood at 48, with a husband who had gone to move the car 6 hours ago and never came back. "Come on," she coaxed, lifting the bundle. She placed him on my chest. He was warm and heavy, smelling of soap and new skin. He stopped crying the moment he touched me, his dark blue eyes blinking open, and in that second I saw it. He had Mark's chin. He had the same cleft in his chin that I had kissed 1,000 times. "Oh my God," I sobbed, the tears finally breaking loose. I spent the next 2 days in a haze of painkillers and lactation consultants. Called Mark 50 times. I called his brother, who lived 2 states away. "I haven't heard from him, Sarah," his brother said, sounding worried. "Is he missing? Should we call the police?" "I don't know," I said, looking at the sleeping baby I had named Leo. "He just vanished." On the 3rd day I was discharged. The hospital social worker, a kind woman named Brenda, wheeled me out to the curb. There was no car waiting. I had to call an Uber, struggling to install the car seat the hospital had donated to me because we didn't have one. The ride home was silent. The driver kept glancing in the rearview mirror at the middle-aged woman with a hospital bracelet and a newborn, looking like a deer in headlights. When we pulled into the driveway, my heart stopped. Mark's car was gone. Usually he parked it in the garage, but the garage door was open and the space was empty. I paid the driver and carried Leo inside, my incision burning with every step. "Mark!" I called out, the house echoing. The silence that answered me was heavy and thick. I walked into the kitchen. On the granite island, where we usually left the mail, sat a single white envelope. It had my name on it in Mark's handwriting. I placed Leo in his carrier on the floor and ripped the envelope open. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. It wasn't a long letter. It was barely a paragraph. "Sarah. Asterisk, I saw the baby. I heard the doctor tell you it wasn't cancer. Asterisk. Asterisk, I can't do this. I spent 20 years grieving the children we didn't have. I made peace with my life. I wanted to retire in 2 years. I wanted to travel. Asterisk. Asterisk, I cannot be a father at 50. I cannot start over with diapers and college funds. I love you, but I love the life we built more than the life this accident has forced on us. Asterisk. Asterisk, the house is yours. Don't look for me, asterisk. Mark. I read it twice. Then I read it a 3rd time, waiting for the words to rearrange themselves into a joke. He didn't leave because he was scared. He didn't leave because of a mental breakdown. He left because he didn't want to be inconvenienced. I sank to the floor, the letter crumping in my fist. A primal scream built up in my throat, but I swallowed it down because Leo started to whimper. "He left us," I whispered to the baby. "He just left us." The next week was a blur of survival. I was recovering from major abdominal surgery with no help. Every time I tried to stand up to make a bottle, I felt like I was tearing open. Neighbors came by with casseroles, their eyes full of pity and questions I refused to answer. "Where's Mark?" Mrs. Gable next door asked, peering over my shoulder. "Is he on a business trip?" "Something like that," I lied, closing the door. I was too ashamed to tell the truth. I was too ashamed to say that my husband of 25 years had looked at our miracle son and chosen a golf retirement over us. But despair quickly turned into necessity. I needed to pay the bills. I sat down at the computer to log into our joint bank account. We had a healthy savings account, our Freedom Fund, we called it. It had nearly $200,000 in it, meant for our future travel. I typed in the password. Access denied. I frowned. I typed it again. Access denied. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I logged into the backup email address attached to the account. There was a notification from the bank, dated the day of my surgery. Password changed. And another notification. Wire transfer confirmation. I clicked it, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The entire balance, $185,000, had been transferred to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. He hadn't just left. He had robbed us. I sat back in the chair, the room spinning again. This wasn't just a man fleeing responsibility. This was calculated. You don't set up an offshore account in the 6 hours while your wife is in surgery. You don't plan a getaway that precise in the spur of the moment. I suddenly remembered something. 3 months ago, when I first started complaining about the stomach pain, Mark had been unusually helpful. He had insisted I go to that specific doctor. My buddy Dave recommended him, Mark had said. He's the best for internal issues. Froze. I grabbed my phone and searched the doctor's name again. Dr. Vane. I scrolled past the clinic's website and found a forum for medical reviews. Buried on the 3rd page was a comment from 5 years ago. Asterisk, Dr. Vane is great, but be careful. He went to med school with my brother-in-law, Mark Jenkins. Small world. Asterisk. The air left my lungs. Mark knew the doctor. Mark had sent me to his friend. Why would a doctor misdiagnose a pregnancy as a tumor? Unless he was told to. Unless the goal wasn't to remove a tumor, but to remove the problem before I ever knew what it was. A sick, horrific realization washed over me. Mark had known. He must have suspected I was pregnant before I did. Maybe he saw the signs. Maybe he found a test I didn't take. No, that didn't make sense. I stood up and ran to the garage. Mark had a workbench there where he kept his tools and his old laptop. He had cleared out his clothes, but he had left the heavy tools. I tore through the drawers. Nothing. Then I saw it. Under a stack of sandpaper, taped to the underside of the drawer, was a small notebook. It was his password book. Mark was old-fashioned. He didn't trust digital managers. I flipped through it until I found a section labeled Health. There were notes. Asterisk Jan 12th. Sarah complained of nausea. Checked cycle tracker. Late. Asterisk. Asterisk February 4th. She's showing. She thinks it's bloating. Asterisk. Asterisk February 10th. Spoke to Vane. He says he can handle it. We call it a fibroid. Surgery removes everything. She never has to know. Asterisk. I dropped the notebook. I scrambled backward until my back hit the garage door. He wasn't just leaving me. He had conspired to have me undergo a hysterectomy to terminate a pregnancy I didn't know I had. Also, he wouldn't have to be a father. The only reason it failed was because another surgeon had been on call that day to assist. The nurse had mentioned it. Asterisk, Dr. Vane was delayed. So Dr. Stevens started the incision. Asterisk. That accidental switch had saved my son's life. And when Mark realized the plan had failed, when the surgeon came out and said, "It's a boy," he knew he couldn't stay. Because he knew that eventually I would figure out what he tried to do. Rage, hot and blinding, flooded my veins. It burned away the sadness. It burned away the fear. I walked back into the house, picked up Leo, and looked into his sleeping face. "He tried to get rid of you," I whispered. "He tried to steal you from me." I wasn't just a single mother now. I was a witness to a crime. I didn't call the police immediately. Called a lawyer. Her name was Jessica, a shark of a woman who listened to my story without blinking. "We freeze everything," she said. "We file for emergency spousal support, child support, and we file a criminal complaint for medical malpractice against Dr. Vane and conspiracy against your husband. Can we find the money?" "Yes. If it's in the Caymans, it's hard," she admitted. "But if he enters the US again, we arrest him." Months passed. Life with Leo was exhausting but beautiful. I learned to change diapers with one hand while on the phone with investigators. I learned to sleep in 2-hour bursts. I looked at my body in the mirror. The scars, the stretch marks, the gray hairs coming in. And for the first time I didn't hate them. They were battle armor. Then 6 months later, on a rainy Tuesday, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. I'm feeding Leo. What is it? Mark tried to re-enter the country through Miami this morning. He was flagged by customs because of the court order we filed. My heart leaped into my throat. Did they get him? They detained him, she said. But Sarah, he wasn't alone. Froze. What do you mean? He was traveling with a woman. A 24-year-old woman. And she's pregnant. The phone almost slipped from my hand. He left me because he didn't want a baby, I whispered, the irony tasting like ash. No, Jessica said softly. He left because he didn't want a baby with you. He wanted a restart. He wanted the money for his new life. And it looks like he told this new girl that you had died of cancer. I felt a laugh bubble up in my chest, a dark, hysterical laugh. He told her I died. Yes. Imagine his surprise when the customs agent told him his late wife is suing him for everything he's worth. I didn't just want money anymore. I wanted justice. The trial was brutal. I had to sit in the courtroom and watch Mark try to explain away the notebook. I had to watch Dr. Vane lose his license and face jail time for the conspiracy. But the hardest part was when Mark took the stand. He looked older, tired. His new life had imploded the moment the money was frozen. The girlfriend had left him. His lawyer asked him, Mr. Jenkins, why did you leave the hospital that day? Mark looked at the jury, then he looked at me. For a second, I saw the man I had loved for 20 years. Then I saw the coward who tried to cut my son out of me to save his retirement. I panicked, he said, his voice weak. I just wanted to be free. The judge wasn't impressed. He was sentenced to 5 years for fraud and conspiracy. He was ordered to pay back every cent of the savings, plus alimony, plus child support. When the gavel banged, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. I walked out of the courthouse, shielding my eyes from the sun. My sister was waiting for me in the car, holding Leo. He was sitting up now, babbling, grabbing at his toes. I climbed into the back seat and took him into my arms. He looked up at me and smiled, a gummy, drooling smile that lit up the world. He didn't know his father was going to prison. He didn't know he was almost never born. He just knew he was loved. People ask me if I'm angry. I tell them I don't have the energy for anger. I'm too busy raising a miracle. The doctor told me it was a tumor that would kill me. In a way, he was right. The woman I was, the one who was afraid, the one who defined herself by her husband, the one who thought her life was over at 48. She did die on that table. And the woman who woke up is stronger than Mark could ever comprehend. We're doing just fine. The money was returned, and I used it to buy a house closer to my sister. Every night when I rock Leo to sleep, I tell him he is the best surprise I ever got. But I have to ask you something, and I need you to be honest in the comments. If you found out your partner had done what Mark did, if they tried to medically deceive you to avoid a child, would you be able to just walk away with the money, or would you need to see them behind bars to ever sleep again? Tell me below.